It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Devora Lieman. Your maiden name was Tocker, and you're here with your daughter Sandy in your beautiful home in Jerusalem. And Devora, Canon, you are going to be in January 104.
Okay. Mirz Hashem.
Mirz Hashem. You must be
Mirz Hashem.
one of the youngest 104 I've ever met.
Okay. I was born in Karlsruhe, Germany, which is the border between France and Germany, right at the border town. I was born on January 10th, 1922. My parents, as third child, I had two older brothers. My youngest brother was 8 years older than I was. So I was the baby in the family.
I'm just going to show a picture of your parents with your two brothers.
Okay.
What were the names of your brothers?
My older brother's name was Abraham, and my younger brother was Yaakov. My father left Poland when he was 18 years old for one reason and one reason only, because in Poland he would have had to serve in the Polish army, and of course he did not want to do that, so he ran away from Poland and he went to Germany, which was right over the border.
Do you know where he was in Poland? In which town?
Yes, he was born in Rzeszów, Poland. That I know. And he had a sister there. And I've never been in Poland, and so I don't know. I never met them. I never knew them.
You never met his parents?
No, I never met his parents. I grew up in Germany under normal circumstances. My father was in business, and my mother had also come from Poland. My mother came from a big town, Krakow in Poland, but she decided, my father had already been established in Germany. He had a business, and she liked that idea very much. So she didn't mind leaving Poland and come to Germany and join my father in the business.
They got married in Poland?
They got married in Poland.
In Poland with their families, with their parents and their siblings?
Exactly,
And
right.
here's a picture of your parents. And what did they speak to each other? Was it in German or in Polish?
In Yiddish.
In Yiddish.
Lots of Yiddish. But my mother right away adapted the German language, and she became very fluent in the German language. And she spoke in German very well, very well. My mother had, in those years, more education than most. She had 3 years of schooling, 3 years in Krakow of schooling, which lots of people in those years did not have.
For girls.
Especially for girls. Even boys. Boys had a Hebrew education. They went to Talmud Torah. They learned how to daven. But no, it wasn't a requirement of the country that the children had to go to school. That was not important, but she did get a Polish education, so she was fluent in Polish, and when she came to Germany, she adapted right away, and she was able to speak, not only speak German, but read and write in German, and she was very, very good at it. when she came to Poland, my father had established, when she came to Germany, my father had established a business with 2 other partners. And when my mother came after they had gotten married, and she said to my father, I don't like these men. Now you are married, I am going to be your partner, and I want you to get rid of those men. Pay them off, pay them out, whatever you have to do. Now I'm going to be your partner, and I'm going to be a partner in your business. And that's exactly what happened. We had a lovely store. We had a store of, how do I say this in English? In German it's called Weißwaren. That means white goods, white, because all the sheets and pillowcases and covers and tablecloths and curtains and were made out of white cotton, white, and we were selling it in bowls. And in order for somebody to, a young girl who was getting married, they bought bowls of goods from our business. We were doing fine, we were doing all right, and they had a dressmaker come into the house and make for them the sheets and the pillowcases and tablecloths to size to whatever it is that they needed. Okay.
Can I ask you have a picture of your mother's parents?
I have a picture of my mother's parents.
Whom you never met.
Whom I never met.
They never came to Germany. And
the
you never
reason I have this picture is because my grandmother came to Germany to visit her daughter when she gave birth to her first child, Abraham. She came for the bris, and she came to help her, and she had to get a passport, and on that passport she had to get a picture, and therefore I have this picture. Otherwise I would never have had a picture.
And how do you have the picture of your grandfather?
You know what? I don't know the reason. How?
Maybe when they went for the pictures, they did already a picture from the photographer, and they already had the picture.
But it's amazing that this picture survived.
Yeah, the picture survived.
Yeah, because my grandfather came originally from Russia to Poland, and he lived in Poland, but he came from Russia. Okay, and his name, if I tell you his name, it was Tricharchik.
It's impossible to spell in any language.
Forget about it.
Doesn't matter what language. Tricharchik. Yeah.
And what was his profession, your grandfather?
My grandfather was a laborer, and he was in German you call it a Messinggießer. In English you call it
like a brass maker.
Brass maker.
Okay, so wait, I'll show you what he made.
Show which my grandfather made that in Poland.
Okay, we have here.
These are the originals?
Yeah.
That your grandfather made?
Yeah. These are brass candlesticks.
Oh, you have?
I have small ones also.
2 little ones.
I have 2 big ones and 2 small. You want to hold them? You want me to get the small ones?
That's amazing.
Forget about it.
And he made
those. Are heavy.
He made those. You pick it up.
It's very heavy.
Yeah, those are heavy. These are lighter.
And he made them.
Yeah. He made
by
them.
hand?
Yeah, he made Chanukiot. He made a lot. He was an expert in doing this. As a matter of fact, there is a story with him. He was poor. They were not wealthy. They were not rich, and he was. But he had an excellent name for being whatever he was.
His reputation was
his
good.
reputation was unbelievable. So they came to him from the church, and they asked him, would he make candlesticks for the church? And they were paying very well. Now, my grandfather could have used the money desperately for working for the church, but he said, no, I am not going to work for the church. I am not going to make you candlesticks. And he turned them down.
He had principles.
That's amazing, because it was also dangerous in a way to turn down.
Right.
It wasn't such a simple thing.
Right.
And your grandfather on your father's side, do you know what he did?
I know nothing about my father's side of the family. Not his mother or his grandmother or his father. Nothing. It never came up. We never saw a picture. The only picture that I have is from his sister. And his sister was the one that put together the shidduch between my mother and her brother. This was an unusual situation because my father was in Germany and he did not want to marry. Years had already gone by. He was already 27 or 28 years old, and he did not want to marry a German Jewish girl. He did not. So he wrote to his sister in Poland, please look for a girl for me who would be willing to come to Germany to live here. So his sister, the mother apparently was not in position to leave Rzeszów where they lived. She had to come to Krakow where she had, somebody recommended a girl for my father. But when she came to Krakow, the girl that was supposed to have met her lived not directly in Krakow, but over the bridge in, I don't know what it was called at that time. She needed somebody to guide her, to take her. And somebody suggested my mother, that as a young girl, will accompany her, escort her on Shabbos afternoon to go over the bridge to meet that other girl. So on the way, my father's sister and my mother had a wonderful conversation, and they went to meet that girl, and when the mother came back, she told the shadchan, I didn't like the girl that you suggested. I liked the girl that walked with me to go. And that became a shidduch for my mother and my father.
It's amazing. And here we have a picture of your father's sister, Nechama.
Yeah, Nechama.
With her family.
Nechama Rosner, I even know
Rosner. Like Rosner, but Rosner.
Yeah.
And what happened to Nechama's family?
Okay, I can tell you something about Nechama's family. My father in Germany was doing fine. We were not rich, but we were doing okay. But they were very poor in Poland, very poor. So as the girls and the boys got to a certain age, my father's sister sent them one by one to her rich brother in Germany. And each and every one came. Yisrael, the oldest one, Manya, Salah, Shmuel, and
Mina.
And they all came
remembers
to
all their names.
Yeah, I know the name because I knew them.
And I knew them.
Yeah.
So we're just going to show the pictures again.
Absolutely.
I met them in Israel.
Yeah.
I met them in Israel. I went from one house to the other.
Yes.
All of them were living here.
Now they were all lived in my house. Not all at the same time, but as each one, and they got settled. My mother married off most of them in Germany, but they didn't want to stay in Germany. They were very Zionistically inclined, and they each and every one made Aliyah in those years to come to Palestine. This was not Israel, it was Palestine.
Right, in the 1930s.
In the 1930s.
One by one, they lived with them, and then they came.
Even before, Shmuel came in the 20s, because I remember I was about 3 or 4 years old. He got married to a rich girl. He came with money, and he came right, and he settled in Netanya.
In Netanya.
You met him.
I met him. He had a pardes, and I met his son. And I went from one house to the other. They were all here. Salah was living where in Kfar Saba.
Exactly.
And Manya was living in Geula, in Yerushalayim, and
Yes.
Mina was living
In Tel Aviv.
In Tel Aviv. I went to all of them. All those cousins
Yeah.
had lived in their house, grew up with my mother.
They were all saved because they left Germany before this whole Holocaust came into effect.
And all of them started families and had families in Palestine, which later became Israel.
Was the family very Zionistic that they wanted to come to Eretz Israel?
Apparently, you know what? I was young, I don't really remember, but they were, they must have been. They certainly were, yeah.
The truth is, in the 30s already in Germany, it was very problematic. In the 20s, it was maybe okay, but in 29 was the crash, and people lost tons of money. It was as good an option as
Did you
anything.
have other family in Eretz Israel at the time?
Wait, who?
Yeah.
You had
Yeah.
wait.
I had an uncle, my mother's brother, but he left in 33. As soon as Hitler came to power and he lost his job, he had a good job. He secretly, we didn't know about it until the day that he left, came to say goodbye. My uncle,
Uncle Pina?
Uncle Pina. Yeah, Pina Twicharchik.
But he changed his name
Oh, did he change his
to
name?
Gordon, right? To Gordon.
Because he came to Palestine. He was very too friendly with the British. From Twicharchik, they couldn't pronounce that name. It became Gordon. Mar Gordon.
And I visited his kids.
Yeah,
The son and his daughter. His son became a pilot.
his son-in-law.
Oh, son-in-law was a pilot
Yeah.
and lived in Ramat Gan.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
His son was a pilot.
Yeah, I visited them also.
My mother came to Palestine after she retired in the United States, and she stayed here 6 months. She was with her brother, she was with all her nieces and nephews. She went from place to place to place to place, and she was here 6 months. But she came back to America.
So can I ask, what is your earliest recollections, your earliest memories growing
My
up in Germany?
earliest memory
Of Germany? In Germany?
of Germany, they were not bad. They were pretty good.
First of all, you could describe your apartment. You had a very lovely apartment.
We lived very nicely.
They lived nicely.
Very comfortably. Very nice.
They had a Wohnzimmer and a Diszimmer. They had furnished nicely, and
my mother had come with a lot of money, I told you, and she bought beautiful furniture, the best available in Germany at that time. And when we made Aliyah to come to America, to leave
Not Aliyah, but not Aliyah, but
Aliyah,
but when you
to America,
to go to America,
leave,
yeah.
When you
my mother
immigrated.
was able to sell the furniture that she bought after she got married in Germany. Who did she sell it to? To the Goyim, of course. No Jew was willing to buy it. She sold all the furniture for good money, and with that money, we were able to buy tickets on a boat to come to the United States. Now the story about the United States.
But before that, what it was like growing up in Germany.
Okay, I'm going.
First of all, you were very active as a child. You had very nice mind. You were part of a lot of clubs and
The things that were not good, that maybe I ought to point out, was that I was thrown out of school after 8 years of public school. There was no Jewish school. I was in public school. We had, in my class, only girls, no boys, only girls. The boys were separately. 4 Jewish girls in my class, all through the 8 years. 4 girls. Now, what was bad, a lot of things were bad, but one of the things was Shabbat, you had to go to school. And from the 4 girls, only 2 were religious and 2 were not religious. We had to get a letter from our rabbi that we're not permitted to write on Shabbat. And we had to give that to the teacher. We had to attend. That was necessary. That was a rule. But we did not have to write. So on Sunday, when there was no school, I had to run around to schoolmates to get the assignments that were given over the weekend that I was also responsible for on Monday when I came back to school. So it was very complicated for many years. But after a while in Germany, they decided that if you cannot write, don't come at all. And from that time on, I was able to go to shul for services on Shabbos morning, which I was never able to do before.
I just want to show there's such a lovely picture when you were 3 years old.
and you were all wrapped up in your winter costume there.
Well, which picture is that?
The winter one.
And here's with your brothers.
You know, where you're wearing the big coat and hat and all that stuff.
Dolphy and
Yankel. We always called them Dolphy and Yankel. Dod, we called them Dod. Dod Dolphy and Dod Yankel. That's what we called them.
And Devora, can I ask, did you have non-Jewish friends at school?
Yeah, I had Jewish friends.
But did you have non-Jewish friends?
I had also not friends, schoolmates. They were not friends. I was really never friendly with a Goyish girl. I had in the afternoon, by 3 o'clock, school was over. I went to Hebrew school at 4 o'clock. From 4 to 7 every afternoon, I went to Hebrew school, which was completely separate from the regular schooling. This is where I learned how to read and write and daven and all the different things.
And songs, all the songs that you learned in Hebrew?
Those were my friends, the friends that I had in Hebrew school, Jewish friends. I did not have German friends. I didn't. I can't say I was friendly with women.
And neighbors? Where you
Neighbors.
lived?
I had neighbors. They were acquaintances, yes, but they were not friends. They were not my friends.
Could you feel there was a hostility or there was anti-Jewish feeling?
No, not at first. Not at first, because I didn't care. I belonged to the Hakoah, which was a sports club, and we, on Sunday when my day was off, we were able to, we played, we went on hikes.
Yeah.
We went, we
You played soccer? You were the,
yeah, we
you were
played
the goalie?
soccer. I belonged to the Hakoah.
Right.
There's a picture of you as the goalie,
As the
They were
goalie.
all Jewish
and you
girls.
the one,
All
the youngest
whole
one.
team.
The little skinny girl, that's the goalie.
This is
I'm
in
the little
1935.
skinny girl. That is, and I begged the coach to. I said, I want to play on the field. I can run, I can throw, I can do all these things. He refused. He insisted that I be the coach,
The goalie.
the goalie of the.
So this
was
is
a
the
little
picture.
girl,
It's such a-
and the goal was so tremendous. They expected me to throw myself in order to stop the ball, but of course I never did. And of course we lost all the
games.
the games that we ever played with other teams from other towns, and we traveled. You could see it. You see how muddy everybody is, because the weather was raining and the field was muddy and it was terrible.
Did you play other Jewish teams or was it general teams?
No, I played only on a Jewish team.
No, but against, who did you play against?
Jewish teams,
Only
In
Jewish.
all the different towns?
all in different towns.
So it was
Only
like a Jewish league that you were all part
Do
of.
you remember where else you played?
Did you
which-
go, which towns you played in?
Yeah, I played in Stuttgart, which was another big town, and others were smaller towns, smaller places. And another thing, we traveled, the weather was usually so bad, we traveled by bus. Those buses at that time, the exhaust came right back into the bus. I got sick going and sick coming back on the bus all the time. I was a little girl.
That's what you remember. And wait, and this you were doing after when Hitler came, how much after Hitler came did you
So
have to
this is-
stop school altogether? Did they not let you in school anymore?
And I was eight years in school. So I started. I was born in 22, and I
You
was
were 6 years old when you started.
Yeah.
That's
So when I was 28, from 28 to
8
8
years.
years. Yes.
Till 36.
Yeah. Till 36.
So this picture with the soccer as a goalie was taken in 35.
In 35.
For 30.
You were on the team before. You were on that team for
Oh, on the team I was before.
for years.
Yeah. That was a Jewish team. That has nothing to do with school. Yeah.
Now, what about your bicycle team? You were
I
also-
belonged to the Ezra. That was a Jewish organization. We went on Tiyurim. We had Shiurim. We had, everything was only in the
But
Jewish.
you live on bicycles. You traveled.
On Sundays, we used to go on bicycles. Sundays nobody worked. Sunday was a day off, and so we went on bicycle. I have bicycle pictures.
Yeah, you have a picture in there of
Yeah.
on the bicycle.
I have a picture.
Yeah,
Yes, here we are. Here's the picture
Yeah.
of the bicycle.
the
Yeah, yeah.
bicycle that was on
Yeah.
in the bicycle
They're
team.
all Jewish girls. Selma is on that.
Yeah,
Ilse
she
is on-
had cousins on there and friends,
Yeah.
and that were very close to her.
Yeah.
Then also, once you had to go out of school, then
Okay. Now, once I went out of school, I was 14 years old. I was still required, as far as the German
Government
laws were, that going to school, but they told me not to come back. I was finished with that. So my mother.
Do you remember the day that happened?
The date?
The day. You remember the day when you hear for the first time, don't come back to school anymore?
No, when I graduated. I didn't graduate.
You didn't graduate,
officially.
but
I got a
like a diploma?
A certificate, yeah.
And all of a sudden they say, don't come back
And they told me
anymore.
not to come back.
Who told you not to come back? Your teacher or the principal?
The principal.
He told you to directly?
Yeah.
And the other girls.
First of all, this school that I went to didn't go higher. I would have had to go to another school. They did not accept any Jewish students in any higher school, which was a high school. But I did have to go, as far as the law was concerned, should have had to go to school, to a school, either whether it was a commercial school,
could be a trade school,
or whatever, some sort of a school. My mother decided that I should learn how to sew. A girl should know how to sew. So here I am, Jewish, and where am I going to go? My mother, I don't know how, don't ask me how she knew. She took me to a sewing school, a Catholic sewing school, which was part of the Catholic church. There was in the same town where we lived, not too far from our house, there was a big church, and on the side they had another building, an added building, and they had a sewing school. And my mother went there with me and registered me in that school. Now, they never asked, are you Jewish or not? That never came up. And the teachers were all nuns in their habits, what is it called?
Yeah, habits. Yeah.
And they were wonderful. Whether they knew or they didn't know, I don't know. All I know is they were wonderful. They were wonderful teachers. They were very patient. And the funniest thing was that every hour the church bells rang. And when the church bells rang, the nuns left us about 200 girls in one big tremendous room, and they went next door to daven.
To pray.
And it took about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, I'm not sure exactly, and then they came back. They were not afraid, we were not running away, we're not going anywhere, and then they came back. And there I learned how to sew. And not only to sew by hand, sew iron, how to cut out a pattern. I learned everything that you had to know about dressmaking in a very patient manner. Beautiful, just wonderful. I went there for an entire year, and nobody bothered me, no one.
Did you make friends when you were there?
No friends at all with anybody. You come, you do your work, you go home. That's it. I told you, I never made friends. I know I was Jewish, whether they knew, that I don't know.
No, but the other girls.
Other girls.
You knew some of them? Some were your friends who went? No.
Amazing.
Your friends didn't go and your cousins didn't go? None of them went?
No.
And Devora, what do you remember about the synagogue? You had such a beautiful synagogue in your town.
It was gorgeous. This was the great synagogue, just like over here. It was a gorgeous synagogue. You have only the outside.
And we have the inside.
I have pictures.
Yeah, you have the...
When they burned it down.
In Kristallnacht, but we have a picture before.
Yeah, you have a picture from before and
Yeah.
Unfortunately, here's a picture
Yeah.
after Kristallnacht.
But there were like two shuls, no? There were like two shuls.
There was another shul, a conservative shul.
Like more reform?
Conservative, you know,
Conservative.
Americans, it's...
The ladies were separated from the men, but they had an organ. That's it. That was the only
But
difference.
you went to the more orthodox.
You went to the more orthodox
Oh,
one.
sure. That's where I went to Hebrew school, and that's where I davened.
And they had like a club, like Shabbos afternoon. They had like...
Ezra was in
Like youth
there were
group,
rooms
like-
there which we used.
Do you remember the name of the Rav of the shul?
Yeah, of course. Karl Friedrichstrasse.
Then the rabbi. What was
And
the
the
name of
rabbi?
the rabbi of the shul?
The rabbi of the shul was Michalski. Dr. Michalski. He was a Dr. Rabbiner Michalski. Yeah, sure, of course I remember. And my Hebrew teacher was Rabinowitz, Mr. Rabinowitz. He was the chazan of the shul. He was my Hebrew teacher. Of
And
course I
going
remember.
there on Shabbos, was the shul full?
The shul was full on Shabbos, absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you go Erev Shabbos as well?
I got every Shabbos.
And also Friday night?
No, but Motzei Shabbos.
But Shabbos afternoon.
But Shabbos afternoon for Mincha we went. Oh yes. And for Maariv, I can still remember the songs that Mr. Rabinowitz sang. He was the chazan of the shul. And that was a very interesting shul. That shul was very German, very. And it was German that at one time, or up until a certain time, to wear your Shabbos, like here they wear a strimer to have a special Shabbos garment, there they had a top hat. If you did not have a top hat, you could not be called up to the Sefer Torah. But later on, after a while, that was like eliminated. It wasn't anymore. But there was a time when without a top hat, you could not get an aliyah.
So your father had a top hat?
My father did not daven in that shul.
Oh.
My mother did not daven in that shul. My brothers did not daven in that shul. Only me.
So where did they daven?
They davened in a stiebel.
Oh, there was a
There was
stiebel as
also
well.
a stiebel. There was also a stiebel.
One stiebel? There were lots of stiebels.
Lots of stiebel.
The Russians made their own stiebel. The Hungarians made their own stiebel. The Polish made their own stiebel. There were so many stiebels. Yeah.
And there you didn't have to wear a top hat.
And there you didn't have to wear a top hat. Phew.
Devora, can I just ask, do you remember any of the nigunim, any of the tunes?
What?
Do you remember the nigunim or the tunes?
Not really. One from Motzei Shabbos I remember. Offhand, no.
But if you'd hear it, you would
I
remember.
would hear it.
And maybe like Shabbos Mincha, I don't know. Atay, Echad, U'Shmona.
Maariv.
Yeah,
I forgot. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Did your father know how to sing?
No, my father did not know how to sing.
Your mother did.
My mother did.
And you did.
And I did. And then I married into a family that sang.
They all sang.
They all
My
sang.
father's family all sang.
They all sang.
Our family grew up, there was always singing in the house.
Yeah.
It was very...
And Shabbos was very special in your home.
Shabbos was
very
special.
special.
Absolutely. Always was.
You ate in the special dining room?
We
It was a special dining room for Shabbos eating. The Wohnzimmer, the Diszimmer.
We had a Wohnzimmer, we had a Speisezimmer, we had a Herrenzimmer, we had, and of course bedrooms, and in the kitchen, and we had a beautiful apartment. Oh, this was an apartment, which was actually, I hardly remember that one. I was very young. We lived in an apartment on the second floor, a very nice apartment in a building in Germany. And we lived on the second floor, which had a balcony, a veranda, balcony outside.
Yeah.
Now the owner of the building was a Nazi from way back, even before
Hitler.
Nazis became Nazis, and he had a store in this building, and he sold car equipment, mirrors and things like that, equipment for cars and motorcycles. So he wanted to put out an ad that's what he sells on our veranda. On the veranda. He had a store right next door, and he wanted to use our veranda. Now, my mother, would not take things lying down. My mother said, I am paying, and we paid rent. This was not our apartment. I pay rent, and this veranda belongs to me, and I will not give permission that you will put a sign on my veranda. So he was very angry, and he insisted. So I don't know, somebody either must have been a lawyer who gave my mother advice, take him to court. Take him to court, but he wants to put on us. So my mother took him to court. And guess what? He lost. He lost the case, and he was ordered by the judge that either he pays us off and gets us another apartment, then he can get his place back. And he had to find another apartment for us. That was the law. And at that time, he found an apartment around the corner, and the name of the street was Rüppurer Straße. There was a town, Rüppur, and this street led right to, that's how all the streets were made. There was a town, Ettlinger, this was Ettlinger Straße. There was a Krieg, which means a war, that was the Kriegsstraße. Everything was led to that. Markgraf Karl Wilhelm, who was in charge, there was Wilhelmstraße, and Markgraf Karl Wilhelm was all over. Wilhelm was all over the place. We had an Arman, a Schloss, which was not in use anymore at that time.
Like a palace.
A palace.
There was a palace but the
Markgraf.
That used to be once upon a time that the king, the
was called the Kaiserstraße.
And they had this...
and we had this pyramid where this Markgraf Karl Wilhelm was buried, supposedly buried. And that was, the Schloss was there, the street came out there until the Kaiserstraße, and right there was the pyramid, a big pyramid in the center of town. That was Markgraf Karl Wilhelm Pyramid in Karlsruhe.
Okay, so when you moved to the new apartment, so that was fine?
That was beautiful. The owner of the building was Goyim, naturally, Catholic Goyim, but nice people. They lived, we were on the third floor, they lived on the second floor, and they had also a store, a furniture store, gorgeous. They made in the back, they had a yard, and in the back he had facilities where he made the furniture. And they were very, very nice. But I'm getting it all confused. You wouldn't know how to put it all together, because when my brothers, who were older than I was, lost their jobs, they had already, been out of school, and they had already been working, both my brothers, they decided they're going to go to Palestine. In order to come to Palestine, you had to get a visa. You have to go legally, not you don't go illegally. So they went to Hachshara. So my older brother, went to Hachshara, where he learned carpentry, and my younger brother went to another Hachshara, where he learned working on the field.
Like
agriculture.
Yeah, agriculture. To be a farmer, agriculture.
To work in Hachshara on one of the kibbutzim. And they worked to Hachshara 1 year. This was Yankel and Dolphy. And when they finished, they were sent home. They said they belonged to the Kapoel HaMizrahi. They said you will get the visa to be able to be permitted to come. As a matter of fact, my older brother Dolphy got a Herbert Samuel certificate. That was unusual, but he was his next, and he got Herbert Samuel was a British.
He was the governor. He was a Jewish governor, actually.
Yeah.
He was the first governor.
And he gave out a certain amount of visas to let them come to work the field, to work in Palestine. So my younger brother got his visa to come to Palestine in 1935, the end of 1935, and Dolphy was home till January 36. And we were, at that time it was already pretty bad. We had lost our business because of Hitler. We could, to see, this is another thing that I never talked about. As soon as Hitler came to power, we had a store, like I told you, and that he took 2 SS men, stood at the entrance of the door, by the door, and said to the people, "Don't buy by Juden, don't buy by Jews." So all our customers were goyim. Once they were afraid to come in. So we had to give up the store. That was right in the very beginning of 1933. So we really lost our income. My father, his business, and...
That was immediately when Hitler came to power in 33.
Already in 33.
Already in 33.
In 33, right away. Yes.
So then he found a method that kept them alive for a couple of years.
How did he make a living?
They took what he sold,
the merchandise
that was still in the store, took it out.
We took it home to our house, and we tried to get the customers that we have had from before.
And he went to fairs. He took trains and shipped these items and went to, like Leipzig.
Yeah.
You always hear about the Leipzig fair. He went to Leipzig and to other cities. He would travel by train, send a shipment with his boxes.
To make a living.
With the thing, and sell at the fairs, and then he would get some income, and they would try to live like that.
Devora, I have to ask you, when Hitler came to power in 33, what do you remember?
What I remember?
Hitler came
How
to
did
power.
things change,
Did you know what was happening?
Of course. They were marching through the street, singing, "Heute gehört uns Deutschland und morgen die ganze Welt." Today, Germany belongs to us. Tomorrow, the whole world will belong to us. And they're talking about that the Jewish blood is going to spritz off the knives. That was one of the songs that they were singing.
And if they had a march, and you were caught in nearby, you had a Nazi salute or whatever.
Wait, that was a very difficult situation for anybody that was walking in the street, especially Jews. And they had all the flags with them. So you're supposed to salute the flag.
This is the Nazi flag, the
Nazi flag.
Nazi flag. Now, if you salute, somebody can come over to you and say, "Hey, you're Jewish. You can't salute the flag." If you don't salute, say, "Why don't you salute? This is the German flag. You have to salute." So when they came marching, we hid in buildings. We shouldn't have this problem.
And you remember the Hitler Youth?
And
The Hitler Youth.
and they were marching through the streets all the time. Music, drums, cars.
But they kept adding laws. You couldn't sit on park benches, and you couldn't go to...
The first thing the real thing was that you could go. But Schreiter was our worst, I think, at that time, for many years.
They banned
Schreiter.
No Schreiter. So there were no Schreiter. So what did we do? So the butchers, the Jewish butchers, tried desperately, whatever connection they had, to have somebody from either Belgium or Holland or France to bring in. And sometimes they got a little something, and then they were cutting it up and giving you a small piece to their customers. It came one before Pesach. Pesach, without Schreiter, you have nothing. You have no oil, you have no fat, you have nothing. You don't know how to make Pesach. My mother had an uncle. Her mother's brother lived in Belgium. I never saw him. I don't know him. I only know we have pots and pans from him because he had a hardware store in Belgium. And so that time was so bad. It was before Pesach. And my mother decided to write a letter to her uncle in Belgium that you know what the situation is over here, and maybe you could send us, and her sister, my mother's sister, also lived in Germany.
Right near you.
Right around the corner from us, to send us some meat or some chickens for Pesach. Okay, she said she doesn't know. She never was in touch with him before, although she got in touch when she got married.
That he gave her those...
He gave her pots and pans.
Things that I still have them.
Have it today.
Yeah.
Anyway, one day we get a letter from the
like border control or something.
Yeah, that there's a package for us. We should come to the office, which was right near us, not far. And my mother went, and she came home with a big package. And she opened up the package. It was from her uncle from Belgium, and there were 2 chickens, frozen chickens, with fat galore, real fat chickens. You know, here you wouldn't look at it today, but at that time, so we would have chickens. So she told me, go on to your aunt right around the corner and tell her she's gonna have 1 chicken, I have the other chicken. On the way, I meet my cousin, and she tells me the same story. She got a letter, they went, And they also got a package, 2 chickens, 2 fat chickens, Selma.
So that Pesach they survived.
That Pesach.
Did you manage to have matzah on that Pesach?
Matzah we had. They had flour, and you know who baked the matzah? Uncle Rudolph.
Oh yeah, this is my
aunt's husband. He was never he was not he didn't have a steady job, but it came Hanukkah time. The matzah bakery started baking matzahs, only hand matzahs. There were no machine matzahs, and he got a job. Auswelgeren, die matzahs. He was.
This uncle, who was married to the grandmother's sister did not survive the Holocaust, nor did one of her daughters. He survived. He was on Schindler's List. He actually was on Schindler's List. He worked, and his name is on the list in the museum, the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., where they have the actual typewritten list. It's not alphabetized. I was there a lot of years ago, and I found his name, but it had, as the people were added to the list, so it's not in any order, and it's in the old, when the old type that faded and everything, but I found his name there.
She did.
He survived on Schindler's List.
Do you remember his name?
Yeah, Rudolf Schädel.
Yeah, sure.
With an umlaut, S-C-H-A with an umlaut, D-E-L. And I knew what year he was born, the same year as my grandmother, 1889, and I said where he came from, and I knew all the information, and I found that line with it.
She found it.
And his daughter, who did survive, his daughter who did survive, was living there in Washington, D.C., in Silver Spring, Maryland, and we were staying by her. I came back. I was so emotional. I said, I saw your father's name on Schindler's List. I said, come and I'll go with you. She says, I can't go.
Did she know that her father was on the list?
She knew that he had been on Schindler's List, but
she did not know, Sandy.
Well, she knew he survived. And
he survived. He said he was working in a factory. That's all. She did not know.
She didn't know it was.
You told me.
No, but that I wouldn't have looked for it if I wouldn't have known that he was on Schindler's List. So I obviously knew.
No,
I wouldn't have known to look. I wouldn't look through over 1,000 names looking for him.
Maybe.
But we knew. But she had a very hard time with it because it's very hard because her mother and her sister did not survive. So it was and he managed to survive. Later on, that became a book, and then it became a movie, and it became, famous Schindler. But at the time, they so at that point, they realized they had no future. You didn't tell the whole story about how it took 2 years to get visas to get out of the country.
Yeah.
Because by 1936. Nobody knew how bad it was going to get. But you couldn't live anymore. Kosher food was just about, when she says like fat chickens, there was no oil you could use because everything was lard or whatever. The only thing you could do is the schmaltz from the chicken. That's what you could use to cook with. You had nothing to work with. So there was kosher food was nearly impossible. Jobs they didn't have. Schooling they didn't have. There was no future.
And do you remember the benches in the park with Jews not allowed on the benches?
Sign that you can't sit on the benches. You can't.
You remember that?
Movies. You can't go to movies. One by one, the laws, they kept adding things you couldn't do.
Did you have to wear the yellow star?
No.
They got out before that. They were out before.
We were out before.
But from 1936, you have a whole story of what happened from the time they realized that the situation was desperate. The only way you could come, first of all, her brothers who were in Palestine said, don't come to Palestine. They're so poor. They said, you'll never be able to live here. It was very hard for them. They were day laborers. They worked. They stood on the pardes at the edge of the road. If they were picked up by a truck and said they needed workers, if they didn't need any more workers, you had nothing to eat that day for supper. So they discouraged them from coming because they were very poor. And they said, just go to America.
No, just try someplace else.
Someplace else. Okay, someplace else. So America was a logical choice. Why?
Because my father had a brother. My father's brother, when he was 18 in Poland, he also ran away from Poland, didn't want to serve in the army, but he went to the United States. So there were no telephones, there were no cell phones in those years. So every once in a while they wrote to each other for Rosh Hashanah a New Year's card, and that was the end of it. So now my father decided we can't go to Palestine. I'll try my brother in the United States.
Because you have to have someone sponsor you. You can't just come to America. Besides the quotas that America had, you still had to have sponsors.
Now, going to Palestine, you needed certificates.
You also needed
well.
certificate, right? But
The
they kind of discouraged them, so they were now thinking America, maybe they could get sponsored. There were 3 of them, my mother and her parents. And they're trying to get the uncle to sponsor them.
And we didn't get an answer from him. My father wrote him a letter, and he didn't answer. So he had a good friend in Germany who had papers to come to America, and he said to him, please do me a favor. When you come to America, look for my brother. Maybe you can tell him, maybe you can talk to him that he should do something for us.
They knew he was in New York. The
last address we had was Brooklyn. So he said yes, he would. Now, he had told that to other people also, but they didn't follow through. This one friend did. He went to the old address that he had, and nobody ever heard of him. Nobody heard of my uncle, nothing. So he got an idea. There was a Jewish paper in New York, the Jewish Morning Journal, and he wrote a little ad. He knew his name, Alter Tocker, your brother in Germany is looking for you. Please come. If you read this ad, or anybody else that knows about you, please contact me. And he gave him an address. Guess what? Not only his friends told him, Alter, your brother is looking for you. They saw it, they saw the ad, and he contacted my uncle. My uncle never made it in the United States. He was a poor guy. He had a little kiosk. He sold cigarettes and newspapers and ice cream. That was his.
And he and his wife lived above this little store.
Wait, and they had moved from Brooklyn, that's why they didn't know, to Manhattan. And Manhattan had become schwarz, black, because the Jews moved out to the Bronx, and the blacks moved in to those beautiful big apartments that they had in Harlem. So my uncle told his friend, I can't bring them. I have nothing to bring them with. And I can't bring them. The Devora Lieman does things differently. His wife, my aunt, had to go for an operation. And she said to her husband, if I get out of this operation, okay, you're going to send for your brother. So that's what happened. She had the operation, she was okay, and she kept her word. She said, now go see what you can do to bring your brother. Now, my uncle was, like I told you, a little storekeeper. He was not worldly. He didn't know what was going on. But somebody, his friend, told him, there is an organization which is called the Hayas in the United States. Go there and tell them the situation. And he did. He went to the Hayas and he said, how can I bring my brother? I have nothing. So the guy that interviewed him said, I'll tell you what you do. Borrow $100 from your friend. Open up an account in the bank and leave it there for 2 or 3 weeks, and then go ask for a letter that you have an account and you have $100 in the account. Then take the money out and open up another account in another bank. And do this with 3 banks. And it worked. Don't ask me why that worked. And then he had 3 letters saying that he has $100 here, $100 here, $100 here. With that, he went back to the Hayas. Now the Hayas says, we're going to make out the papers. And I want you to know, this all took 2 years, from 36 to 38, the end of 38. And we got a notice from the American consulate to come for an interview and to come for a medical examination. And we got the visa 1, 2, 3.
Once he had done this kind of method of having letters of amount of money that wasn't even his, that he could sponsor them, then they were able to get it. And then there were quotas. Now the quota was also complicated because my mother and her parents were not on the same quota.
My parents were Polish. They were never German. They were always Polish. But I was born in Germany, so I was on a German quota.
And each one had a limit how much could get in, and they wanted to travel together. So that worked. They were able to get to fit in each quotas and to go together.
And we came the last, literally 1 week before Kristallnacht.
1 week before?
Yeah, they got out. They got out before. They had tickets to go
to France,
to Le Havre,
and to go to Ile-de-France to come to the United States.
So this was the end of October, the beginning of November?
Exactly, October 1938. What happened was they were in shul. His father was in shul on Rosh Hashanah. And he told the rabbi, we have our visas to go to America. We're going to wait till after Yom Kippur. And what did the rabbi say?
Go now. Because there was a question with Czechoslovakia. There was going to be a war right then and there. He said, you can go on Rosh Hashanah. You can leave right now.
There's no reason to wait till after Yom Kippur. They real time. There was Germany, what they did in Anschluss, they took Czechoslovakia in 1938. Everything was they knew it. People think they didn't know. They knew. He said, you have a document worth gold in your hand, get out as fast as you can. And even then it didn't go 100% smoothly because they were on a train.
We had to go from Germany to France. Now I told you, the border was the Rhine, and the train stops just before you go over to France. That's the border. And they come up. The Germans come up to check your papers. So we showed them the papers, okay. They took my father's passport and they said there's something wrong with the passport and we have to check it. And the train was going to leave. So but what was my mother and me going to do? We're going to leave my father alone? So we all got off the train. As soon as the train left, They brought back the passport. Of course, there was nothing wrong with the passport. And then we had to wait at the station all by ourselves and not knowing when the next train is going to come. They didn't tell you when the next train is going to come, so we didn't know. We were sitting on pins and needles. If we were able to get out of Germany, we didn't know.
And do you remember leaving your home? Do you remember leaving?
Oh, yeah. But not only do you remember leaving your home, but they had to say goodbye to the aunt, uncle, and the cousins
That must have been
who
so
were still
difficult.
there. And the aunt, that's her grandmother's sister, her mother's sister, my grandmother's sister,
Yeah.
begged them, as soon as you get to New York,
Yeah.
just send for us, get us out. You be our sponsors and get us out. And unfortunately, it was too late. By the time they got to New York, there was no way, and they were sent out when Germany expelled the Polish citizens and sent them back to Poland, and Poland didn't want them there, and they were stuck in Spongine on the border between Germany and Poland, and nobody wanted them, and no one was feeding them, and no one was taking care of them, and they were stuck there.
That was your family?
That was her
My uncle.
her aunt and her cousin.
No, that they were not sent. He was sent. Only the men. And my uncle, he was there.
And where was your aunt and your cousin?
In Germany. That's the problem.
And they were still in Germany.
Yeah, they were still in Germany. But then after a while, the Red Cross got involved and all that. Eventually, these people had to be taken back by Poland slowly because they were Polish citizens. They were all Polish citizens.
Poland didn't want him in the beginning.
Yeah, and my uncle, he did go back to Krakow, where he had family, but my aunt was there with a little girl by herself. Selma was not there anymore, and so she was all alone, and she had no income at all. So she packed up and took her little girl, and they also went to Poland. What were they gonna do? That was her end.
What happened to the family? Were they?
She died of typhus in the ghetto in Krakow, and with her little girl.
And your uncle?
That's the uncle who survived on Schindler's List.
That's Uncle who?
Yeah, that's the one.
So
He
that's
survived.
He survived. He survived.
He survived.
But his wife and the...
And but he lost a wife and a daughter, and the older daughter, her other cousin, had come to Palestine as well. Just like her brothers, they had
That's
come,
why she survived.
and they were and she survived. Yeah.
And when you said goodbye, it must have been so emotional, saying goodbye.
Very
Do you
much.
remember that day?
Very much so.
You
Very
remember
much.
that
Yeah,
day?
they came with you to the train station, and everybody was crying, and it was
They took us to the train station the day after Rosh Hashanah. They took us, and she said to her sister, Rosa, forget mich nicht. Don't forget me.
and that was the last they ever saw of them.
Did you have a feeling that you might not see them again?
We tried desperately. My mother had cousins here in America, and they refused. And they were in good condition. A dentist, a lawyer, a teacher. There were 3 or 4 cousins. They didn't know them. Of course they didn't know them. But they never knew who they were. And they refused. And they never sent for them.
No.
They never sent for them.
It's unclear at that point in time if they could have really done anything, because once Kristallnacht happened, there were no more legal anything going out, and Europe, was already.
And they already asked him, this family that was there.
They asked the family, but the family didn't.
My mother went to see the cousins and asked them, begged them to help her sister.
And they wouldn't.
And they wouldn't.
Yeah, they don't know how they felt after that.
I don't know.
That's a tragedy.
I don't know. We were never in touch with them after that.
No, I can understand why.
Not at all.
Because they didn't know.
And you never kept the connection?
Okay. No, because they didn't really have a connection, and they didn't really, they didn't want it. But the truth is that once they came to America, they settled in pretty nicely.
Can I ask you, the trip going on the boat?
Oh yeah,
Trip
on the boat.
When you left Germany.
Yeah.
What happened when you left Germany? When you finally
the trip
left?
on the boat was.
But when you left
before
Germany,
you got on the boat, when you got to
the border, when you left Germany,
Yeah.
how was the feeling when you left Germany? Going into
Very
France?
bad, scary, because we were sitting at a train station till we got the next train, but we got on the next train. On that next train, we met a woman who used to live in Karlsruhe and had moved to Paris, and she invited us. She says she was a rich woman and she had taken all her money with her out of Germany. And she said, I wish I could live with you, but I can't, because she has all this money and she can't take it with her. I guess even out of France, she couldn't take it out either. And she invited us and we stayed by her.
Because in France,
In France.
you weren't allowed to be roaming around at night. There's like a curfew, and then you have to be somewhere. And they come, 3 people, with nowhere to stay and nowhere to go, and you're not allowed to be on the street.
And I'm sure you didn't have much money either.
And you didn't have much money, and you're Jewish, and I know everything is a little...
So
but this woman took them in.
She took us in.
And they needed...
Mina Shemaim, she was on the
Right,
train.
Mina
And we were
Shemaim.
already. Then we had to go to the Havre. In the Havre, we picked up the boat to come to the French boat to come to America.
And then on the boat, my poor mother was so seasick that he said, did you fast on Yom Kippur? She said, I fast on Yom Kippur. Well, I just throw up on Yom Kippur. I didn't fast nothing.
What do you remember about Paris? How long did you spend in Paris with this lady?
You were only there one night, right? Were you there more? How long were you in Paris?
No, one night, no.
One night.
We saw nothing. One night, overnight, and then we went to the Havre.
Straight away.
Yes, straight away.
They just wanted to go.
Yeah, we just, yeah.
But tell them the story with the sleeping accommodations on the boat.
You know, my parents got a berth for the 2 of them, and I was a single girl. They put me in with somebody else. I walked into the cabin. It was 2 double-deckers, and in one bed lay a black woman. Black. I never saw a black woman before. There were no blacks in Germany. So I was 16 years old. I said, I'm not going to sleep in this cabin. So there was another family from Karlsruhe, and she traveled with 5 little children, little ones, and because her husband couldn't come until later, he was in a Russian quota, he was on a different quota, and he couldn't come at the same time. So she traveled with the children, and he was going to come a few days later. So she said to my mother, she says, look, I'll put the kids together and I'll let your daughter stay in my cabin. And I was in her cabin on the upper deck. And I was so sick. And it was October. The weather was very bad. Very bad, I'm telling you. Very bad. And Yom Kippur, they had a minion on the boat. It was, my parents were at the minion. It was very nice.
You were just too sick to do anything.
I couldn't get out of bed.
Was it mainly Yidden that were on the boat?
Was it mainly Jews who were on the boat?
No. They had a religious kitchen. They had a religious dining hall.
So there must have been enough religious Jews who were
Yeah, there were, but not all. This was a big boat. This is a luxury.
Do you remember the name of the boat?
Sure she does.
Sure, the Ile de France. Of course I remember the name of the boat.
remembers.
Of course I remember.
Do you need a drink, by the way? You've been talking for like...
Yeah, no, I'm okay.
You're amazing. And can I ask, when you got eventually to New York,
Yeah.
did you see the Statue of Liberty?
Yeah, that we saw. That when we finally got to calmer waters. Yeah.
And did you feel free?
I felt very good. Yeah.
Did you have to go through Ellis Island, or you could
No. We went right from the boat. We got all the papers from the boat. We went right out onto the pier.
And was your uncle there to welcome you?
Was I
The
right?
uncle. Was the uncle there to welcome you? Who was
My
there?
uncle was not there. Not at that time, no.
No, the one who was in New York.
Oh, my uncle, that, yeah, of course he was. Of course. He came. He came to pick us up with a taxi, yeah.
Yeah.
And how was the reunion?
Yeah, of course.
Seeing your uncle.
And he took us to his home. So that was another shock. I told you how nice we lived in Germany. And there is my uncle in New York, and who has this little store, and they had the kitchen behind the store, and they lived upstairs. They lived upstairs in an old building. The bathtub was in the kitchen.
Was it one where you had to heat up pots of water and then pour the water in?
I don't know.
It didn't suit them.
But
Her
when you
mother and...
When you first saw your uncle and your parents, when they saw the uncle, were they very emotional and thankful?
I don't know even how emotional. Yes and no. They didn't know each other really. You know,
But he still had saved you, even though it was somewhat reluctantly and it
his
took a
aunt
long
and-
time.
And his wife.
And his wife, but he and his wife had actually saved you as much as he did better than the cousins who didn't want to have anything to do
he
with
gave
you.
us lodging. He did give us. He had 2 sons. He sent the 2 sons away to friends, and he gave us a room. It was not what we were used to, but before that was all before Kristallnacht. Before that, we were able to send a lift from Germany. This was months before, and my parents sent the bedroom, and a couch for me, and table and chairs from the kitchen, and whatever, and all the household goods and everything. And my mother was smuggling in the candlesticks, has silver candles.
Right, anything valuable you weren't allowed to take out. But
That she wrapped it up in
bedding and
Towels.
clothing and towels and...
while the overseer wasn't looking. I remember the packing. I remember the company when they came to us in Germany to pack up what we were permitted to take.
So it was good they had done that months before.
Yeah.
Because at that time they
that
wouldn't have
time.
been able to take anything out anymore.
Do you remember the name of the company?
The name of the company?
No, I don't know. No, the name.
Yeah,
It was
okay.
called-
did-
So how long did it take after you got the lift?
Not too long, because we sent it away.
Right, but a few
earlier.
months before.
It was about 3 weeks later. We went.
And then you were already in your own apartment. You went.
We went to look for an apartment. We knew it was coming, and so we were looking for an apartment. That was another story in the apartment.
Yeah.
My uncle, he didn't know anything. He didn't know where is a good area in New York to look for. So he sent us to somebody in the Bronx. That's how we ended up in the Bronx. And he says, ask him, he's a mover, he knows his way around. And he showed us there were rooms. Every building had empty rooms. every building available. There are apartments available. In every building there were apartments. This was after the crash in 1929, and this was 1938. That was all practically 10 years later. So, but there was still a lot of empty apartments available. But we had to try to keep it down because my mother started to work already as a dressmaker in Manhattan by Mrs. Bergman. I still remember her name, see? And that was in Midtown.
And did your parents know any English?
English? Did anyone know English? You didn't know any English?
Yiddish. With Yiddish you get along very well. Everybody speaks Yiddish. Everybody. There was no problem.
So your mother got a job working?
My mother got a job working for Mrs. Bergman. So we knew, things were very cheap. Things were cheap. You could buy a dozen rolls for, I don't know, it was nothing. It was very, so we were looking for an apartment, and we went to many apartments to see. One was $35 a chodesh,
Per month.
and another one was $34, and this one, the one that we finally took, was $33. We didn't realize at the time it was the top floor of a 5th floor building, but it was a beautiful building. Anyway,
And no elevator.
no elevator.
It's a walk-up.
Those were all walk-ups. Those were walk-ups. But the apartments, they wanted to rent it. They painted it. The owner painted it. There was parquet floors. They shellacked it. I mean, it was a beautiful apartment, but it was on the top floor, and it was $33 a chodesh, and we figured out that we were able to afford that, to pay that amount. Okay, we settled there, and then my uncle came to look to see what kind of an apartment we picked. When he came back home, he said to his wife, Esther, you should see the apartment with the Gerine up in sich herausgesicht. Look.
They just came off the boat and look how they're living and look what we're living. My grandmother, her mother was very, she was a good businesswoman and she had a lot of seichel in her head. And
Did they stay close with the uncle?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we did. But he had a lot of problems with his children. It wasn't that simple.
And then you went to work.
Yeah.
Saying she was 16 years old and she went to work.
And you knew how to sew and...
She had learned how to sew in Germany.
My mother got me a job with Mrs. Bergman.
So you worked with your mother?
Yeah. So we were both working till I got another job someplace else. But I worked in a factory all along, all the time.
And how were the conditions?
The conditions were not bad. The conditions were good. In the beginning it was a little hard, but eventually it worked out fine.
And at night you were going to night school to learn English. It's like Ulpan for English.
And at this time you had heard what had happened with Kristallnacht?
Yeah, of course we heard.
But you couldn't reach anybody anymore.
We were not in touch with anyone.
You couldn't reach anyone. If you sent a letter, it didn't arrive. You never got an answer.
And was it in the papers? Could you hear? How did you know what was going on in Germany?
How did I?
I'm sure it was in the paper. I'm sure it was in the paper. Kristallnacht was a major. I'm sure it was. And one could look back in the internet.
The Jewish Morgan Journal. He bought it into the
I'm
house.
sure it was in. Kristallnacht was for sure. There's still what were a few years before the final solution, but but Kristallnacht itself was a major event of shuls and businesses
by Juden.
burnt. There were fires all over Germany going
And Austria as well.
and Austria.
Yeah.
There were I mean, that was like a news event, but they couldn't reach the your family anymore. You couldn't, if you wrote, it didn't get to where.
But it must have been so difficult for your parents knowing that you still had family left in Germany.
No.
No, it must have been difficult for them. Yeah, knowing that they had family left in Germany.
Of course.
Yeah.
It must have been
Yeah, of course it was.
incredibly difficult.
Of course it was difficult, but then they were stuck. And meantime, they're trying to adjust, and her father was somehow never that healthy after they came to America. He really the women were working, and the father was not doing so well.
And did you find a community,
Not really.
But in the Bronx, you found a place where you eventually met your husband. So there were.
but was there a shul that you belonged to, and
Yes, there belong is another, but went to, yes.
Also, you went to that girls' group that was that they put in an ad that they were looking. They learned Parshat Shavua or something, and my mother went.
I was reading the Jewish Morning Journal, and there was one time that I was very lonely because I had a lot of friends in Germany, lots of friends. So I was looking for Shabbos. I went to services in the morning to the YMHA. It was right on the block. And but I saw an ad that the girls are going to learn Chumash in Yiddish. In Yiddish was the ad. And the address they gave, I said, oh, I know where that is. That is 2 blocks from here, Washington Avenue. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I decided, I'll go there. Let me see what happens. So I went. I knocked on the door. A young girl came over. And I said to her, do you speak Yiddish? Yeah, sure. So I said, I read the ad that Malem to Chumash. And I just came from Germany. And, oh, come in. And come in. There was, around the table, there were sitting 10 girls at least. And she said, let's all speak Yiddish, because she doesn't speak any English yet, and let's learn Chumash in Yiddish. And they became my friends from that time on. Every Shabbos in somebody else's house.
that's so lovely.
You see, because she had the initiative to go out. There was nobody coming to help you find friends.
And did they ask you about your life in Germany? Did they?
Yeah. They were able to speak Yiddish, and
you told them about what you were doing, what you had
what
done.
I was doing, and they were fine. And they were all the girls were high school grads. I mean, eventually, and they all were looking for jobs without Shabbos, and that was very difficult in those years. It was 1938. We're talking about 1938. But through the Young Israel, that's where whoever Shomer Shabbos guy was looking for a secretary or for somebody, he would contact them to send somebody. And this is how they got the jobs.
And
but I was working in a factory. I was making money. These poor girls, they were sitting around. They know how to steno and typing in those years.
And you didn't have to work on Shabbos, you and your mother?
You and your mother didn't have to work on Shabbos?
Never. That was not easy in those years.
It was rare, it was very rare.
Rare. I worked. I finally, I graduated from Mrs. Bergman, and I got a job in a factory. and it was very far to travel by subway to Canarsie. That was in Brooklyn, not a nice neighborhood, not a best neighborhood, but they had plenty of space. Anyway, so I met somebody which I knew from Germany, and she said they need somebody. You want a job? You can apply. I said okay. So I did, and I went, and I got the job, and I was working there, and I got it very nice. And the foreman was Jewish, was a Jewish guy. He spoke to me in Yiddish. We had a wonderful connection. So it came Friday. Friday was a long trip, an hour's trip, to go back to the Bronx. So I said to Jack, I'm Shomer Shabbos. At first I didn't tell him that, but then I said, I'm Shomer Shabbos. I have to be home for lighting candle time, and I have to leave early. Can I do that? He said, as far as I'm concerned, you can. But the Balabus was his brother. He says, you have to go and speak to Mr. I forget what his name was. And the point was, on a regular basis, we had a punch a clock. As soon as you come in the morning, you punch a clock, and when you leave at night, you punch a clock. So they know exactly how many hours you worked in there. So I went to the boss, and I told him the same thing. I'm observant, and I have to be home. I have a long trip home. Can I leave? He was very nice, and he said, yes, you may leave, but you have to remember, you have to punch a clock to go out, but I cannot pay you for the time that you're not here. I said, that's fine, I understand that. And that's what it was. And I never had any trouble whatsoever. Shabbos they didn't. They worked, but not everybody came to work on Shabbos. But most of them, there were Jewish people working there. Some worked on Shabbos. I wasn't there, so I don't really know.
And your brothers, they were in Israel at this time?
Yeah, at that time they were in Palestine.
Yeah, they were in Israel, yeah.
They were in Palestine until the 1952 or something.
But how old were the boys? They got married. My two brothers married two sisters. My older brother married a younger sister, and my younger brother married the older.
And all the families knew each other from Germany. They all knew each other from Germany from before.
Were your parents at their wedding?
No,
they couldn't.
Their parents weren't at any of their weddings. They all got a few people at their wedding, very minimal people, and
you were in touch with your brothers all the time?
Yeah. Oh. Not only that, you want to know how ironic it was? They used to send packages from New York to Palestine, or later it was already Israel after 48, but they would send them packages of clothing.
Because there were such shortages.
Because they didn't have. And they were working, and they had income, and they were able to leave, and they figured out how to do it, and they would pack up packages and send it. And the two brothers and these aunts, who became my aunts or whatever, they each had a child born around the same age.
Yeah.
And then at around 1952, they all came to New York. They left Israel. It was then Israel already, but they left Israel, and they were still struggling. They had no family with them, and this and that, and they came and then they all lived kind of near each other.
And how was it like when you saw your brothers after all those years?
Yeah, you hadn't seen them for a very long time. Your brothers, you didn't see them?
Yeah, of course not.
They came with the wives and with the baby, and
did you connect with your brothers? You connected?
Yeah, they were very
I knew
close.
them from before.
I know, but there was so many years separation.
Yeah. Like the stories in the Chumash. It's
amazing.
It's like the stories of being separated. Yosef, Yaakov, all these separations.
It's many years that you were separated.
Tell them.
The brothers stayed. They worked together all the years.
Tell them the story about the Leah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But the two brothers, Eventually, they both became carpenters and opened up a carpentry shop and did that all the years. They were excellent. They made furniture.
And they worked together.
They worked together. One dealt with the customers, and one couldn't deal with the customers. They was like they had a division of labor, but they both were carpenters, and they made beautiful, beautiful furniture. Even for them, they made some things. They made their own. But the story with one of the older brother's wife, she, how did she get out of Germany? She was on the boat called the Patria. The Patria was trying to pull into...
was an illegal boat as far as the British were concerned.
The British didn't want to let them land.
She traveled through Europe at night. In the daytime they hid. This was all during wartime. And they finally got onto the boat in the Patria. But the Haganah here knew that that boat is coming in to Haifa harbor, and they wanted to help to get these illegal children, mostly were teenagers, not very small, and not even families, I don't think, mostly teenagers, off the boat. So they wanted to make it a diversion. The Haganah tried to set
an explosion
when they came in to the Haifa harbor, and to divert them to get these illegal people out of the boat. Something happened that little explosion that it was supposed to be became a big explosion, hit the boat, hit the people. Many of them were killed on that boat, on the Patria. And my sister-in-law, at that time she was not my sister-in-law, at that time she was thrown into a coal bin, and she was unconscious for quite a long time. I don't even know how long. Anyway, then of course they took the people off the boat, and she was interned. She was taken prisoners because it was illegal, and she was sent to Atlit, right? It was Atlit, and she was very sick. And her sister
was already in Palestine.
In Palestine, she was legal. She was at Hachshara, and she had come legal, and she lived in Tel Aviv. And she knew that her sister was coming illegally on that boat. She knew about this. And she knew that she got sick, she got hurt, and she is one of many. We went to see Atlit.
We'll tell. There's a story about Atlit also.
Yeah.
The story of Matan's bar mitzvah.
Yeah, right.
In Atlit.
Right, yeah, right. So my sister-in-law in Tel Aviv sent one of her friends to Atlit to see maybe they could get her out of there. And he came dressed as a nurse in a white uniform, and he found her, and he said, "Leah, do you know me?" And she looked at him, and she said, "Yes, sure." He said, "You know, Leah, I have a nurse's uniform over here. If you could get up and get dressed, I could take you out of this place." So she said, "I am so sick, I can't lift my head off the pillow." And he could not bring her out. He tried, but he couldn't bring her. But she did get better as time went on. I don't even know how long.
I think she was 4 months. I think she was 4 months in Atlit. Now the story with Atlit is our grandson, who's now a soldier in the army of Israel, for his bar mitzvah, they arranged a tour of Athlete. They have a whole thing that they have like the barracks where they house the people, these big, very primitive, big rooms, and each one got a little thing with a little curtain between it. I mean, very, very primitive, but that's where the people were. And they've saved that because they take people on tours. And then they have a ship that nearby that they made modern stuff in there, and they have films and they have real pictures, and they take it's a whole thing. So for his bar mitzvah, they took the whole family, all the grandparents on both sides, aunts, uncles, cousins, and our grandson. For his bar mitzvah, what he did is they went up ahead of time, and he became the tour guide for us. Now, they talked to us about it because we knew the story that my aunt had been in Athlete. So they asked me some information about it, and then that's it. They didn't ask me more, and I didn't say anything. One of the things that we do, we go into a room, and it's just us, and we were a group of, I don't know, two dozen people, 30 people, I don't know, whatever, and they have a big screen, and they start showing different pictures of what it was in Athlete. They have real pictures, and all of a sudden on the screen is like a Tudat Zehut, like an identity card with the picture of my aunt. And I screamed out, "That's Dodalea!" I nearly fainted, and I knew I had told them about it, but I didn't know. They had gone to investigate, and the Athlete in their archives there has the people who went through, and they have an identity card with a picture and her name, and it says she came from Germany, and all that is on it, that she was in Athlete for these few months. And you were right there, and I was saying, that's my, it's like, we never, when we were growing up, we didn't talk to our aunts and uncles at all about what their life was like coming to Israel.
They never spoke to you?
No, it never talked about. No, it wasn't spoken about.
And with your mom, did you speak with your mom?
More, but there were things that we learned. My family wasn't one that hid it, but they also, my parents didn't go through the camps. Like my in-laws, my husband's parents went through camps, and that was a different experience. So they had certain experiences. I was always curious and interested. My father was born in America. She didn't tell you that she met my father in America. Yeah, we didn't get to that. But I grew up in a home where we talked about it a lot. I read tons of books. Every book that I could get my hands on, I was reading different stories, biographies, autobiographies about things that people had gone through. So for me, it was a big thing. But by the time I'm growing up, and my aunts and uncles are there, and I have cousins. Okay, so the question was, when you were growing up and you were in your late teens and 20s and the Holocaust was going on, did you realize what was happening? Did the Jewish papers carry it? Did the news carry it?
They did. But you know what? I don't remember. I don't remember those dates. I don't know why I don't remember.
What?
What was going on, except when the war was over.
No, but not before that. First of all, in September 1939, Poland was invaded by Germany. That was a news event, and nothing that was separate from the Jews.
Right.
So there was a news event. You would come a little over, you came a little less than a year before, right? October 38, and this is now September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland. Yeah. And that's officially the date that World War II begins.
Right.
Now they're invaded. So now and a very short time after that, they started putting Jews in ghettos. So like when they started putting Jews in ghettos in Poland, did you know that the Jews were being singled out, that Jews in Poland were in trouble?
I personally didn't know.
Do you remember the
But-
March of the Rabbonim when the rabbis marched in Washington?
Right. There was a big march that Rabbanim had gone. They were,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Some of those, first of all, it had to be that Jews knew what was going on in heavily Jewish
Of
areas.
course they do.
They had to have known.
Of course.
Everything that look, people were trying to reach their people and relatives, and people were getting all kinds of news. I'm sure they knew about ghettos and about, is still way before they started extermination camps and other things, but there were ghettos. Right away they put Jews in ghettos. And
But you see, like when my aunt went to Poland, we knew very little about her. We have no way of
Right.
being in
No, that was specifically, but in general,
In general.
that Jews in Krakow were put in a ghetto. Jews in Pietrków were put in a ghetto. I think that was even the first ghetto. So that news had to have been, because you were growing up in an environment where that was a major thing.
Yes,
And what was your feelings about Roosevelt?
my feeling of relief that I was not part of that I was able to escape. I realized at that time that we left before all these terrible things are happening.
But the thing is that he could have done so much more. And he wasn't doing it because all these people didn't get out.
Because he had a lot of support from the Jewish from the Jews. Roosevelt.
There was a lot he could have done, and he didn't do it. He didn't do it. He could have saved a lot of Jews if he would have opened the borders
Absolutely.
and lowered the quotas and let people come in, but he didn't do it.
And they didn't, and you know that his advisors were Jewish.
Some were, but
Some
some
were,
were
yeah.
also anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
There was a lot of anti-Semitism in the State Department. There was not
Yeah.
it was not so simple, and they were fighting a war because from December 1941, America was in a war.
Of course.
Until then, they weren't in the war. They were helping out England a little, Lend-Lease, but there were no American soldiers fighting until
Right,
we were
right.
attacked at
Right.
Pearl Harbor.
Right.
So,
Did your parents, most of their friends, were they German as well? Or Polish? Did they
Like the people-
associate with
the Jews that you
People
met and
from
the
the old
friends that you
country?
came, were they also from people who had come out of Poland or Germany? Or were they people who had been born in America or already were living in America?
When I lived in Washington Heights.
No, before Washington, in the Bronx. Like when you met Daddy and, you know, in that area where were the people like Native Americans already, or were they people that had gotten out of Europe before?
Native Americans.
A lot of them?
A lot of them. Most of them. There were some that went to Washington Heights. Those were the survivors.
Yeah, but we're not talking about survivors yet.
Yeah.
Because when you met Daddy, how old were you when you met your husband-to-be?
Well, met him
They lived in a like a complex where
38, 39, 40, before December 9th, before 41.
before
Yeah, but
41.
we lived in the same,
There was a complex that was heavily Jewish.
completely Jewish.
Jewish
was in the Bronx.
In the Bronx.
In the Bronx.
And that area was it was like Jewish, comfortable being Jewish.
No quarrel.
The people, they had stores
Yeah,
on Saturday night.
yeah, it was all open.
The stores were
They
open.
were closed Shabbos, and those that were closed Shabbos all open Saturday night.
And they used to walk
On Bathgate Avenue, yeah.
and it turned out that her mother and my father's mother became friends.
Yeah, no,
They became friends, and my father's mother, she picked you out
picked
for
me.
her son.
you did see.
Here we have a picture of you with your husband, with your father.
Right, and he became a soldier in the American Army, and they had a very, very long engagement. They were engaged for a very long time because they were engaged, and then he was sent to Europe.
At the Battle of the Bulge, he was sent over to Europe, to
So
France.
when did you get engaged?
We got engaged before he left.
It's like 1942. It was like 1942.
Must have been.
And they didn't get married until
46.
1946.
Till after the war.
Oh, after the war, for sure. He was in the army the whole time.
And did he volunteer to go into the army, or he was
So
conscripted?
that's an interesting story.
He did volunteer, but they didn't accept him because he looked too young. And so he said, you have to go home and get a letter from your parents, because he had to be over 18 or something like that. And he says, okay. Once they turned him down, he's gonna wait till he gets the number is gonna
His
be
draft
called.
notice.
Yeah.
The draft notice.
Yeah, a draft notice.
But one of the reasons he was so motivated to go was because of the Holocaust. In other words, it wasn't just that America was fighting a war. It was that the Jewish people were being decimated.
And he wanted to try
and
and
he
help.
wanted to fight. He wanted to try to save Jews. So he wanted to go.
I was just reading in my book, said in my book, I have a poem that he wrote, that Daddy wrote.
And was this at your engagement?
This picture is
That
from
was
your-
the engagement before he was sent over.
No, here it says finally the end of the war. Is the poem after that?
No. Here,
Here's the
this
poem.
poem. Read this poem, and you will see what he has to say. He wrote
He wrote this home
me
from France,
from France.
October 19th, 1944.
My husband. He was not my husband at that time.
They
Were
were
engaged.
Engaged.
Returning to camp yesterday from a shower, we passed some of Germany's flower, in quotes. Some youth going about their work, cleaning up piles of rubble and dirt caused by a well-placed missile of destruction upon what was once a stately construction. Work proceeded with the pace of an eel. Could they be blamed? How would you feel after being promised to be ruler of a world galore, land over here as a prisoner of war? Was this the key to the plan of subjugation, that they, the Herrenvolk, master race, labor for hostile nations? I wondered what thoughts were on the Nazi mind. Did they still have faith in Hitler's kind? Would they try again to dominate the world? Crying colonies, Lebensraum, living space with a swastika unfurled. For an answer, J looked again among the group of toiling men. One in particular caught my eye. He had stopped his work to watch us go by. His face was vivid. His eyes were agleam, typical of his age, which J, oh no, it's not J, I think it's an I, which I guessed at 19. Boldly he snickered. The expression seemed to convey, I'm helpless now, but there'll come a day. Decadent democracies, I've heard that before. Once and for all, let's show them the score. Why stop now and let them catch their breath so they can return to play this game of death? We can be just as ruthless as they if it's under those rules that they want to play. So when they quit and hostilities cease, let us beware of these disturbers of peace and never relax vigilance until they have learned that he who plays with fire shall surely get burned. I'll stick this out as long as it takes, but I don't want my children to pay these same stakes.
That is incredible. It was like a poet.
He's like a poet.
Yeah. As a hero.
He was like a poet. So he wanted to fight in this war because the Nazis were killing the Jews, and he wanted to be part of it. And he was part of it because
He waited.
he was a military policeman.
He was in the military police battalion.
And did he liberate any of the camps, or did Did he help any of the Yidden in
He
Europe?
was guarding
And
Nazis that they captured.
After the war. He was guarding Nazis.
Here's where he's in the military police. See when he's in the military police? And he, you want to tell him the story about the gun?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, my mother has a story after he came back from...
He came back from after the war was over with a Luger, a German Luger, a big one like that. He says it's a souvenir. He took it off an officer, a German officer. He was a prisoner of war. I said, not in my house. That gun is not going to stay in my... But it's a souvenir. I said, I don't care what it is. I don't want it here. Now I see my great-grandchildren, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, everybody else with a gun this size.
Yeah, he came yesterday.
Yeah, he came yesterday.
My grandson, her great-grandson, I thought he was out of Miluim. He showed up, said, what are you doing with a big gun? He says, I volunteered to go back to Miluim. This is the same story.
It's the same.
The same story. I'm trying to protect the Jewish people. He volunteered to go back. So that was it.
Would I have, when I was 16 years old, come on a boat to America? Imagine that this is going to happen again. That it's going to, first my husband went in the army fighting as a soldier, and now my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren.
It's the story. But your story was in 1946. You finally got married. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And where did you get married?
Where?
Yeah.
In New York. In New York.
In a show? You were...
No, in a hall.
And do you remember who the Rabbonim were at your wedding?
Here you have.
Oh yeah. No.
You have.
Absolutely.
You have Rabbi Reuben.
Yeah, Rabbi Reuben.
They got married right before Pesach.
That's right. That's right.
Do you have a picture of Rabbi Reuben?
No, I don't think so.
The rabbi?
No.
And do you remember the other Rabbonim that your father...
My father was not alive anymore at that time. Only my mother and my uncle was there at the wedding.
But did you ever come across any of the great Gedolim or any of the rabbis?
You had rabbis that your family was in contact with that you...
Yes. You
had the Melitzer Rebbe?
The Melitzer Rebbe was but the Wapchitzer Rebbe, my mother-in-law was friends with the Wapchitzer Rebbe's children. They had 3 daughters, and she was very friendly with them because my mother-in-law's father was the shochet in Wapchitz for the Wapchitzer Rebbe. And we went when he was on furlough, when Daddy was on furlough, before we were engaged. We went to visit Levitz and Reuben to get a bracha that he knew he's going to be sent over to Europe. He knew that. He knew that.
And you got a bracha.
Yeah, from the Rebbe. From Rabbi Reuben, who later became our Masada Kedushin.
And then did you move to Washington Heights?
Much later.
Oh, much later.
We lived in the Bronx still when I was born.
Yeah. We had a business in the Bronx.
What type of business were you doing?
Oh, a trimming store. I'll take that puzzle off.
Yeah.
These are my father's parents. These are her in-laws. My Bubba and Zeta. That's my Bubba Elka, and yeah, these were them, and he had opened a trimming store for sewing supplies.
So it's all connected to sewing.
Yeah, that was independent of that. That just what he had done. And when my father came back from the army, he went into the business with them. So
that's the business.
I have a puzzle on the wall here, which is like all the things we used to sell. Should I take the puzzle off?
Wonderful.
Should I take the puzzle off? We have all the things we used to sell in the store, in the trimming store.
We have. Are you going to take it off the wall? Are you in here?
I do puzzles, so these are puzzles all over the house.
Oh, you give up.
This is amazing.
Now you see here Lieman's trimming store. You see on the
Yeah.
This is an actual card from Lieman's trimming store. This is just a puzzle of all the things that we used to sell. Buttons and needles and zippers and threads and needle threaders and all these things we used to sell. And when I saw this puzzle, I bought it. I did the puzzle. And my mother added the Lieman's trimming store in the Bronx, where we had our store. And all of us were involved in it. All of us worked in it. My mother worked in it for many years. And I used to come after college, after my courses, and I used to come and help out. And I used to help Daddy with in the course. So
is it still there? Does the shop
no,
still
it was in the South Bronx, and that whole neighborhood was completely nothing left of it.
They took it all. It's complete. It's not in existence anymore.
And going to Washington Heights, you were happy in Washington Heights?
What, in Washington Heights?
You were happy living there?
Yeah, it was fine.
It was more Yekisha,
Yeah, but first I wanted the low part, then we moved up to the higher part. Yeah, it was fine. It was okay.
And were you associated at all with Yeshiva University?
Yeah.
With Yeshiva University in Washington?
No, that was further east. I was further west. Yeah, Yeshiva, but up that Yeshiva University.
But you used to have sometimes boys come from Yeshiva University who come and look for meals, Shabbos meals. They had.
Yeah. They had where the boys didn't have where to go on Shabbos to eat.
If they were looking for something different or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And can I ask, and it's a difficult question, when after the war, I'm sure you remembered when the war ended, it must have been it was a very exciting time when the war ended, after all those years of being in...
Should I tell them the story?
Your story? Okay, you like to tell the story. So. Okay.
When the war in Europe was over, they let a lot of American soldiers go home, those that had been there a long time. At that time, my husband wrote to me a letter saying he is going to be sent back to the States, but he's not going to be released from the army. He knows he's going to be sent to Japan and to fight in the Pacific. He knows that. And he wants that when he comes home, he'll be home about 10 days. We should get married. And his port of embarkation is going to be in Oakland, California, to be sent to the Pacific. And he wants me to come with him and stay in Oakland while he is being sent to Japan. Now, I knew when you were talking about Germany, I didn't know so much about Germany, but I certainly knew about the Japan, how terrible the United States was doing at that time, how many American soldiers were lost. Iwo Jima, my girlfriend had a boyfriend, or
maybe they were engaged already.
And he was killed in Iwo Jima. So I knew how terrible that was. So now he writes me that he wants me to go with him. Now I lived in New York, and I lived in the Bronx, and I lived with my Ima. That's it. My brothers were in Eretz Israel. Not only did I not want to go, I was scared. I was scared to go, or scared not to go. Should I go and be miserable in California, or should I stay in New York and not marry him? I wanted to marry him. And I had nobody, really literally nobody, not a rabbi, not a friend, not a relative, to ask, what should I do?
Your mother? You couldn't ask your mother?
Huh?
You couldn't ask your mother?
Your mother.
My mother. My mother didn't
She
want me
didn't
to
really
go.
want her to go because then she'd be by
She'd be
herself
alone.
and she'd be by herself. So it didn't seem like exactly what they had in mind.
So, as much as I had nobody to ask, you know what, whom I asked? I asked the Rabbeinu Shalom. I know I'm not going to get an answer, but I said, tell me, what is it you want me to do? About 3 days after that, suddenly, the United States is launching an atom bomb at Japan, at Hiroshima, and destroyed Hiroshima. They did not yet surrender at that time. And another 3 days after that, they sent a second bomb to Nagasaki. And after that,
Yes, they surrendered.
they finally surrendered. Now that they made an atom bomb was a very difficult secret that had not been leaked. It took over a year with thousands of people working on those atom bombs. So now, I said, the Rabbeinu Shalom did answer me. Don't go anywhere. Stay right where you are. He's coming. He was still in Germany. All this was happening while he was still in Germany. Then he was sent home, and then we got married 3 weeks later.
That is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Devora, that's amazing.
All right, so that's the story.
And Devora, I have to ask you, when you found out after the war, the terrible news, what was coming out of Europe, could you imagine that such a thing had happened?
That what?
That such terrible news came from Europe about what had happened to the Jewish people. Like, how did you feel after?
How did I feel? You know, I felt good. I become a little selfish. You feel terrible. I know my aunt didn't make it. I know that. I know all that, and how many people were killed, and then.
I think little by little you started finding out all the terrible news.
Slowly. You think you found out right away.
Even
Just
Daddy, who
slowly.
was in Europe, saw, he must have seen Jews who came out of the camps or
My husband, he saved a German girl, I don't know what it was.
a child.
Or a boy. Child. He was off one day in Germany, and he went to a beach, to a water, and he was sunning himself. And there were 2 women with children sitting right near the water. And suddenly, one of the women screamed, "My child, my child, my child." And he was sitting further back. He heard it. He ran over, jumped into the water, and saved the child. and brought her out. And she was so grateful. Now, he didn't ask if she was Jewish. He didn't. Of course she wasn't. Of course he was a Goyer. Of course the child was Goyer, but that was not the point. He saved that child in Germany.
But when I grew up, when I was born right after that, and I grew up in a family where we talked about what happened, where we talked about what the Jewish people had gone through, where we talked about the relatives on both sides of the family that were left behind. On my father's side of the family, they were all in Poland. Whoever hadn't come to America was in Poland or Israel. Some had come to Israel and some had come to America.
And those
but
that were in Poland?
They were in Poland. Where?
No, those that were in Poland.
They didn't come out.
They never
Nobody.
came out. They were all
Nobody came out. No. Whoever got out before and either was in America or in Israel were out. But anyone else did not come out. And they left there were big families there. My grandparents, the ones that we were in the picture before, they had come right around the time of like World War I. Right? They came right on. My father himself was born in 1921, right after World War I, in America already. He was born in New York. But the siblings and their families and everyone that was left behind didn't come out anymore. Whoever came out went to America or Israel, and that's it. But we talked about it, and it was very much conscious. And talking about Israel was also always, it was like part of, nobody of us had ever been to Israel, and yet we talked about it all the time, about coming to live in Israel. My father's dream was to retire and to come at age 60, take early retirement, come at age 60 and come and live in Israel, and my parents were planning that. That was like in their mind. But unfortunately, he didn't make it. He almost made it to 60, but not quite. And he never had a chance to retire and to come to Israel. He made 5 trips to Israel. They came together 5 times.
They did visit.
They visited 5 times, yes. And he loved it. And it was just... it was what?
And your uncles that were once living here, did they want to return?
So they did not come back, but one of them has children and grandchildren who did come to live in Israel, who live here, that we're in touch with. Yossi and Gita and Tamara, and they have family here who did come. And so they did that. So I grew up in a very... Zionistic house, and I knew that I wanted to come on Aliyah too. And my husband and I and 4 children came on Aliyah about 8 years before my mother did, because my father's death at a fairly young age kind of spurred us on that that waiting for retirement is risky, and that maybe we shouldn't do that. And we should come, and you have different challenges at every age, and I've learned that over time, and I've given advice to many people who've asked or whatever. At any stage and age you come, there are different challenges for you yourself, and depending on what's going on, whether you have elderly parents or young children, or people have to get work, or they're retired. Each thing has different challenges, so you have to think about it. And when we came, my mother really, she was still working, but had in mind that when she was going to retire, she was going to come, which she did. And Baruch Hashem had a lot of decades here already.
And Devora, and Sandy, did you speak about, you knew about your mom's life and what she had gone through growing up?
Yes.
Your mom spoke to you about it?
Yes, and even my grandmother did. My grandmother was very easy to talk to. And my grandmother lived with my parents. It's funny, it's similar to what my mother is living with us. But my grandmother lived to the age of 100. And she lived from 80 to 100. She was
in my house.
With my parents. She outlived my father. She lived 8 years longer than my father, so they were 2 women by themselves. But when I was still at home, before I got married, and she used to be there. She used to come at first just for Shabbatot. Later on, after I was married, she eventually moved in, but she used to come just for the weekend. And when she came for the weekend, she shared a room with me. And we used to talk. And she talked about things, and I talked, and I learned. I'm saying I was always interested in all those things. So they went through difficulties, but it wasn't the same as talking to someone like my mother-in-law who went through Auschwitz, where no matter what we talked about, it led to crying, and it was very hard to talk about. But I could talk about it, things that they went through, and was definitely part of our life.
And Devora, you've never gone back to Germany, even though you were invited.
Yeah, she was invited, but you didn't go back.
I was invited.
I don't know if you would. Maybe if I would have encouraged it, but
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I was already in Israel. We had come on Aliyah already. And when she got this invitation in 1988, it was 50 years. 50 years, from 38 to 88. And now the city, they were doing it in a lot of places. The city of Karlsruhe is inviting the Jews back, and they want to show them, and I don't know what, apologize for them. My mother was like offended to think that they could somehow make up or be forgiven, and I don't know, she didn't want to go.
Yeah, they were so beautiful, they were so good, so all of a sudden you have to thank them, bow down to them. I wasn't ready.
Now, I was living in Israel. Maybe had I said, look, I would like to see where you grew up, and maybe I'll meet you there because I could come from Israel and you'll come from America, and maybe you'll show me, maybe. But I was living in Israel. It was still in the early years. I had young kids. I was a little bit, weren't very settled here yet. Kept moving every year. It was a little bit hard. And I didn't encourage it, and she said she didn't want to go, so we kind of left it. But there was a point in time that one of our sons, one of her grandsons, said that he really wanted to go back with her to Karlsruhe in Germany, and she should show him where she lived and where she went to school.
It's never too late.
And we never did it.
But it's
we
never
didn't
too
do
late.
it.
Because I feel there's nothing left of Jewsness in Karlsruhe. I don't know, but
We even looked it up on the internet. There's like
You
nothing
can see
there.
that the shul.
The synagogue is not in
There's
existence.
nothing there. There's nobody there.
Yes,
So
and the ones that are there are intermarriages. And they're not. There are.
maybe in the big cities. I'm
Maybe.
not saying if you go to Frankfurt. My husband was born. My husband was born in Frankfurt and in a DP camp. His parents were Holocaust survivors, and they were, after the war, sent they sent them to DP camps. And he was born there in Frankfurt am Main,
When was he born?
1946,
In a DP camp.
in a DP camp. His mother had been in Auschwitz, and his father had been in Dachau, in Germany, in a work camp. His mother was in an extermination camp, who survived. But, and he was born a year later. They found each other. They had been married before the war. They had a child that they lost that was taken from them. They found each other, and then he was born. He's really a second child of theirs, and he was born in 1946. So, and my husband and I did go to Poland on a trip, and we even spoke to this Rena Quint, that you mentioned, because she's related even to my husband's family, and we spoke to her, and she gave us advice on how to get guides to take us to different places, and we went to on our own
Have you been-
to Poland,
But have
not
you
to
been
Germany.
Have you been to Germany?
No.
And growing up, did you have German goods, or was it?
So when we were in America, we didn't have German goods. As a matter of fact, you remember the scissors, was it the scissors? They used to sell.
Solingen.
They had German scissors, and my father wouldn't buy it. He wouldn't buy German products. But in America, it was easier to not have German products because America has everything. So they had Swiss scissors, right? We had
Yeah.
Swiss. We didn't need to buy the German. But then you come to Israel, and you run into a little bit of a problem
But you
here.
know, a lot of the companies like AEG were originally Jewish owned.
They were
Yeah,
originally
They were
Jewish
already
owned.
Jewish firms.
Yeah. But it became like you come with your ideas, you're not going to buy a German car. Now, okay, that's okay. You can not buy a German car because there are Japanese and the European cars, so you don't have to buy a German car. But you start with appliances and start with faucets, and you start ending up getting into problems. But we were sensitive. We were always sensitive about it. My father was adamant that we were not going to have German products in.
But how do you feel now that in Europe, with what's happening and what we've seen in the last 2 years since October the 7th, that Germany and Austria, in a way, are our closest allies in Europe?
Yeah, I know.
It's a little ironic.
I know it's ironic, right? We don't.
I don't know. I know more about the United States than Europe. Europe, everybody's against us. Do we know that?
But Germany and Austria have actually stood up
Germany.
for us.
Germany has. We take what we can get. I don't know if Germany's helping us a little, or or not condemning us. I don't know.
It's crazy.
But when we hear about people leaving and going to move to Germany,
that's
that one I have a little harder time with. I don't know about that. But I did, yes, was I ever in Germany? I had a funny story because when my husband and I traveled, once we were, where were we, in Switzerland or something, and we tried to get back a day earlier than with this group that we were with because our oldest son was having an open day in the army, and he was the first kid going into the army, and he was 19 years old, and we didn't know about it ahead of time. Everything was last minute, so we changed our flight back, and we had to go by train to get from somewhere to somewhere, and we had to go through Germany. And it was the weirdest thing. We were sitting in a compartment like you see in the movies, not like an American subway or something. You're sitting in a train, like a European train, and we get to the border of Germany, and two Germans in office, in uniform, not officers, in uniform, come over and say, "Passport him." And my heart started going crazy. I knew I wasn't in the middle of the Holocaust, but there are these Germans who are demanding my documents, and they say that I'm from Israel, and all of a sudden I got so scared. I felt like, from all the books that I had read and all the stories that I had heard, I said, they're going to take me off the train. They took you off the train too. Yeah. So they're going to take me off the train. Passport them in German. I said, what am I doing here? We had to go through Germany. I said, get me out of this country. I got to get out of here. So I didn't go to Germany, but I ended up in Germany, through Germany to get home. And we made it home for our sons. Yom Patuach, they had some kind of thing in the army. I don't think they do it anymore. I don't know. And we were there for him. But oh my gosh, I remember thinking, I said, like, I'm living it. That's how scary it was. I can't even imagine how scary it was to actually be on a train.
And you remember it like yesterday.
I remember when we had to get off the train. Yeah.
And not knowing if you made the right decision. And
we knew we were supposed to go to Paris, but this we didn't know. We didn't. I mean, you should have expected that something is going to happen, but you don't. You figure it's going to go through.
Right.
And Devora, if I can ask you, what message do you give to your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and to the future generations?
Oh, what message?
Well, Sandy, you as well. What message
No,
would you
I think
impart?
one of the things, first of all, their connection to Jewish things, even my father in the American Army, you wouldn't believe, these are stories I heard a lot of times, things that he did in order, remember he's in an American army, not in an Israeli army, with food, with shaving, with this thing you had to shave on Shabbos and they would check you. And then it was the thing with the food, and he would go in and talk to the cook inside and make some kind of arrangement that the first eggs that they made,
hard-boiled
eggs before they did anything else, and just give him the hard-boiled eggs. And he he would get a ration of cigarettes, right? And the cigarettes, he never needed any cigarettes, wasn't interesting to him, but other soldiers loved it, and he would switch them for the few items that he could eat. I don't know what, chocolate, I don't know, there were like a few things that he lived on. And then they used to send packages before Pesach. It was very important to him. And the thing with the shaving, it was very funny because my father, maybe you saw from the picture, looked very, very young, even when he was in the army. I don't even know if he even had started shaving, but they used to check to make sure he had no stubble or anything. And he had to figure out how to do it and not do it on Shabbos. It was always like, I would say, I don't know, growing up, trying to figure out how to be a good Jew was like a major part of like his life. Had to eat in a sukkah. We came out to eat in our sukkah when we had a private home in America on Long Island, and we finally he was so happy, we finally don't have to be in a building and ask other neighbors or get a rabbi in a shul. We had our own sukkah, and he comes out for the first day of Yontif and the first night, pouring rain, and he wouldn't wash. He was waiting for the rain to stop so he could go out to the sukkah, and all of us are just waiting for him. We had little kids and nobody's eating and no one's washing and making kiddush. We wanted to eat in the sukkah. He waited all this time. So he was very serious about it, but he tried to do his things in a quiet way, and we grew up in that kind of home. He was very, he loved doing the Jewish religious things. It was a very important part of it. And he saw living in Israel as part of what.
And the family remained from, and they kept the emunah?
Yeah. My brother does not live here. I have a younger brother. He lives still in Brooklyn, but he's got 3 children, married, living here in Israel.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they're all from? Everyone's from?
They're all from. And one of them has a wedding in about a month. And my brother and sister-in-law, Mietz Hashem, are coming. And we hope to see them. We hope to be a wedding. My mother has already a dress for the wedding. And she's all ready and excited about it.
And Devora, you happy that you made Aliyah, that you came home?
Unbelievable. Not for a moment did I ever think that I made the wrong decision.
As a matter of fact, in Germany, back for 1988, when they wanted her to come, she wrote them back a letter saying, Ich habe nur eine Heimat. And I have one home only, and that's Israel. And she wasn't living in Israel. She wasn't living in Israel, but she told them, that's not my home. Germany's not my home. Only in Israel. And it took just a couple of years more after that you came on Aliyah. Yeah, so
I just want to thank you both. It's been just incredible being here this evening and to meet you both. It's just been something extraordinary. It really is. And you are both so inspirational, and it's. So I'm so grateful.
Okay.
Really, I'm incredibly grateful to both of you.
Well, this was a whole experience that we never had.
And I'm so happy we're doing this for the very first time.
And we appreciate it too, because there'll be something now in something live.
I must say that you really are, I think, the youngest. You're going to be 104 Kenan Horek very soon.
Yeah.
And you should just have mazel and bracha and just nachas, and you're having a wedding.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. But I want to ask you a favor. Could you give all of us a bracha?
The Shalom Al Yisrael. Let's hope we are well, and we will see it. We'll see it ourselves. That everybody will be all psuras, Torahs from everyone. Let's hope we will see the real ceasefire, the real peace, not just a ceasefire, but a peace where they also, when we get rid of Hamas, we try to get rid of our enemies, if that's possible. I keep saying, Avinu Malkeinu, you are our Father, you are our God, you are our King. Please, you have to help us. You picked us. And we maybe we don't deserve it, that's a possibility. But afilo we don't deserve it. You have a responsibility toward us, to take care of us, and we hope that you will do it in our lifetime, in our time. Let's hope we see the good things coming.
Amen. What a beautiful. That is just incredible. Thank you so much, and Teddy, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
I'm eternally grateful to you.
This was
I really
a
am.
whole experience for us.